guys, welcome to another episode of Hope Unfiltered. I'm Renata Singh. I have joining me Pastor Jake.
Great
How
tip.
you doing?
I'm really good. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah.
Kinda. I just know it's just one of those topics we need to talk about, but you know.
We know it's controversial,
I
but
know.
it could be a little bit.
But you know what? I love the fact that we create this space for these conversations. So I'm happy. I'm real happy to be
Again,
here.
we always say it's a safe space, so feel free to share your opinions and views, even if it's a different one than we have, yeah?
Oh, well, that's exactly what we want. You know, we want to hear from you guys. Just how you processing some of these things.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely. And this week's topic, before we jump into the icebreaker, is how has the evolution of gender roles challenged the traditional Christian values and biblical views on gender? And I'll hand it over to the MP as he asked to be called.
I was waiting to see if she would have done it.
She learning.
She learning.
Yeah,
All right.
trying.
All right, guys. So for the icebreaker this week, we're going to play a game called Generational Slang. So we're going to keep it basically to the last 3 generations. So we're talking about millennials. You guys know what age group millennials are from?
I think we
have
did
an
some
idea,
research,
you know?
so I'm going to check
I
it
know
here.
I've fallen into that category.
81 to 96.
Right.
Yeah.
So then we move on to Gen Zs, 97 to like around 2012.
Right.
And then we have the newbies, the Gen Alphas, or as they like to call themselves, the Jennies.
I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah, me too.
I thought everything after me was considered Gen Z.
So these are early 2010s to mid 2020. So you're looking at your average 13 to 14-year-old as it pertains to that. So I'm going to give you a word, which is a slang, and you need to decide which generation it's from and give me the word in a sentence.
In a sentence.
Yes.
You asking me plenty, but let's go.
All right, so first word. Tea.
T?
Tea. T-E-A.
I think I know
Tea?
what this one's saying.
Like the tea is drink.
Oh my gosh.
IRL off here.
Like the gossip, the
Give me it in a sentence.
bacchanal.
Uh-huh.
I've got the tea.
Right, yeah. So I've got some tea for you is a good way of putting it in a sentence, and it basically means news or gossip.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. What generation are from?
That's actually from Gen Z, yeah. So not millennial. Yeah.
Right, okay.
We have some catching up to do.
I hear, boy. I'll check with my daughter there. Cause
All right, next one. Sigma.
I know that is a camera lens.
But that's not the meaning of it.
Sigma.
I heard this one.
I have
IRL.
not.
I feel in all these, but
All right, well, you go. You
no,
do the
I know.
sentence.
I really.
All right, which generation I think it's from?
I think this is Gen Z as well.
I think no, that might be millennials.
Millennials.
No. I just watch MP face. I wish they could have seen. Clearly, y'all, I am feeling badly. Let's go. Gen Z or
No, Jenny actually.
Jenny?
Gen or Gen A. Oh God, say the whole thing now. What's the meaning?
So the meaning of it, try it in a sentence and I'm going to see where your minds are.
I have the Sigma lens.
All right, it means...
Wait, Sigma really is a lens, huh?
Yeah, it is.
And that's how I know.
It means a popular, independent man or something of dominance.
Okay.
So like instead of alpha,
Yeah, basically
It's
sigma.
sigma.
Yeah.
Sigma. So you're okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for this though.
Yeah.
You know,
but
you're expanding your vocabulary. That's always good.
but you know, if we use it with that generation, they go and watch us.
Yeah.
Like
Stop it.
cringe,
Just
right?
stop it, yeah.
Like so,
Speak for yourself.
I think I should get this one. Trolling.
Or
I probably don't know what the generation, but I mean,
Well, if you know what you mean,
I think millennial.
then
It's
you
from
should.
millennial.
millennials, yeah.
Yeah.
And it means to.
Gosh, well, how could I? What's the meaning of this?
Right, you're taking too long. It
Like
means
how
to
the,
prank someone.
how the MP is be trolling us
Yes.
on the show.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Ate. A-T-E. Ate.
The
ATE.
the past tense of eat.
Yeah, that's what we know it as. But
I ate
in
my food.
in slang terminology, what does ate mean?
Is that like how we say that is food? No. Is it similar to that?
No.
No. Okay. I lost.
This is a Gen Alpha term.
This is a Gen Z term.
Gen Z.
So what happened Gen Alpha and no term?
Yeah, Gen
Yeah, we
Alpha.
had the one before Sigma.
Oh.
Sigma was Gen
Sigma
Alpha,
was-
yeah. Right, so ate, I'll put it in a sentence. Oh, you ate that outfit. So what do you think it
Like
means?
you rocked it. You
Yeah. Means you did well.
Okay.
You
Okay. You
owned
did
it,
well. You
kinda
ate
thing.
it.
Yeah, so those shoes ate. I'm
You ate
hoping
it.
I use that in the correct terminology too, but I would assume that's how it's been used.
You guessing at this point?
Right?
Chugi.
Ooh.
Chugi. C-H.
My
Chugi.
daughter told me this.
G-Y.
My daughter told me this. This is Gen Z. I guess it's Gen Z, right? I can't remember for the life of me what it means. She did tell me.
This gonna be a one.
I get it's Gen Z. Chugi. It's cute? No, that was
Yeah,
So
along
kinda-
the lines of
something like that. And it's more like affectionate thing. Is something
Something-
one, a positive.
something out of a trend that's... Actually, no, you're completely wrong. Sorry.
Is it good? This man telling me yes and then
The meaning of it is something out of a trend that's unfashionable.
unfashionable, right?
So you're like, yeah, those skinny jeans are chuggy.
So the kind of like the opposites almost of eight.
In a way, yeah.
Kind of.
Girls stop mixing it. Watch me. You will get me.
Chugi. It's not so you're not vibing it. Eight. It
You're
was
out
great.
at- you're out.
Eight. It was great.
You see, now
That sounds good.
that's why you will cringe when
They're not supposed to be watching this.
for real.
Next one, Stan.
Stan.
And I would like to think you should get this.
Stan.
Stan. S-T-A-N.
I would not.
It's
I want to
already
say I
in-
should not
it's
say on this podcast.
It's already in the millennial generation.
I don't know. When I think about Stan, doesn't Eminem have a song called Stan?
Yeah. It actually generated from that song.
Oh my god! I cannot even remember I can't even remember this song.
Yeah, well, they don't even watch me on this side.
So it means, well, like you said, it comes from that song, and it means to be obsessed or idolize something. So in a sentence, those Taylor Swift stans are really doing my head in.
What do you mean Stan? I don't understand.
So people
That's from
who-
the Eminem
yeah, exactly.
song.
Yeah.
So like a real overzealous fan,
fan,
kind of
basically,
thing.
yeah.
So I know the reference with the song. Okay, so it means it's basically okay.
Yeah. Skirt.
Yeah, and he give us the-
Skirt. S-K.
that
RR.
by Gen Z
TT.
again. Is it
Skirt.
Gen Z?
Gen Z, yeah.
That song I like Scoot. Kind of.
We real feel here, Ole. We real.
It's used a lot in rap songs.
Skirt.
Yeah.
And you assume I listen to rap.
Yeah. So basically, it's like an onomatopoeia of tires screeching. So it's a way it could be like...
What onomatopoeia you just said?
Yeah. Of tires screeching.
Okay.
So it's like in... Like how you would say, like, hold up.
Yeah. Skirt.
Yeah.
Oh, so it has to be said like skirt.
That's what he tried to do.
Yeah, but
He
we
tried.
never used to say skirt.
All right.
That's from what generation?
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah, that had to be Gen Z.
All right. Last three. Looks maxing. Looks maxing.
Looks-
Like you look real good. Looks maxing.
Looks maxing, like yeah.
Yeah. What generation?
Like
you
you're a
think?
10, huh?
What generation I think it's from?
This have to be either this Gen Alpha.
Alpha, I would say alpha.
Yeah.
It means when someone changes their appearance to look more physically attractive as possible. And in a sentence, I started looks maxing and cut my hair short. In other words, like glow up, sometimes they
Okay.
say, yeah.
Glow up.
All right,
Second to last one. Jay, you should be able to redeem yourself with this one.
Should be.
I don't think so, but let's go.
Ohio.
Ohio. That's not a
So I guess it's
state?
millennials straight out.
Nope.
No, it's not. This man setting me up. boy.
Well, you
Go
do
ahead.
have an advantage. You have a
Oh.
Gen Z daughter. Gen
Yeah.
Z or Gen Alpha?
So she's Gen Z, and I
Okay.
have the alpha.
Alpha, yeah. Right, so you should be getting all.
The alpha is 3 years old. She come on,
So this means used in a response to describe something that's dead, cringy, or undesirable. So now that I gave you the
Ohio.
Yeah.
I mean,
Adara did tell me this one. Yeah.
so like if somebody says, "Nah, you definitely from Ohio," means like yeah.
But you see, we had a different meaning for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, when you're talking about like them kind of backward states.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
but I knew it wasn't that. I knew it was is a newer meaning.
I had no idea. So, wait. Hopefully, I need to rewatch this so I could like refresh my memory.
Please don't
into-
use them. Please.
Why?
Listen.
I like my rhyming line, so I'm definitely going to use it.
If it's great.
All right, so y'all can redeem
I
yourself.
can't remember what it was.
You can redeem yourself on this last one.
I thought that was the last one.
No, I said 3 more. We did 2.
Oh, okay.
Gucci.
Ooh, I feel like I know what this is.
Well, I give up at this point.
Gucci.
So it is millennial slang.
This sounds like something from Mean Girls.
It means all good or calm. And in a sentence, how you doing? I'm Gucci, man.
I'm Gucci.
Yeah.
Gucci.
Yeah.
I never hear somebody say that, but okay.
That's what I say. It sounds like something from Mean Girls. Trainees may not necessarily
All right. Yeah.
speak like that.
All right. So
All
now
right.
that you've completely confuffulated our brains,
How much we get right?
Actually wasn't checking, but not a lot.
I'm glad you
You'll-
will check it.
I didn't
you'll
get any
definitely
meanings.
failed.
We definitely
Yeah.
we
will.
definitely fail. I mean, I get a few knowing what gen it was from.
Right.
That was about all.
Yeah. Wow. That was an interesting icebreaker.
Yeah.
Kind of fun. A little educational on our part as well.
Yeah, that does take us all over the place. So.
Yeah, but
then
it kind of
follow
leads straight into the conversation that we're about to delve into in terms of gender and stuff like that. And if you're now joining us, I did tease what this episode is going to be. I'm going to read it again. We're going to be discussing how the evolution of gender roles has challenged the traditional Christian values and biblical views on gender. So, Pastor G.
Talk to me. Let's.
All right, I think we have to start the basics. What is
Right.
gender?
Yeah. So difference, well, gender, we want like how it is now in culture, because I mean,
How is it now in culture?
so just like, you know, those words we were hearing have totally different meanings. I think gender has become something, I'll use their terms, has become fluid,
Yeah.
that it's not something fixed. I think for us, even in my generation, it was already changing.
Yeah.
But I mean, when we look through the generations before, gender was more or less assumed based on your sex, your biology. But now, right now, if you ask what it's like right now, it's optional.
Yeah.
It's you know, we talk about it's based on behaviors, culture, psychological, you know, factors where people think and feel.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more transitioning.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, even from when I was growing up, it was very different from the way that it is now.
Yeah.
And I think even previous to my time and stuff like that, it's just something that has been constantly like evolving. What we see now has
Right.
been a result of years and years and
Of
years.
the little changes that we
I
saw.
don't know if I should say the word indoctrination.
You
But-
want to
but
start
yeah.
heavy one time?
I
because
mean, yeah.
it's a good word in the sense that it's something that is being taught.
Yes.
It's teaching generations how to think about it,
Yeah.
rather than what we. And not because we use the word something was traditional means it's automatically negative.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't even like that word anywhere near this conversation.
Serious.
Yeah, tradition. Because I
Right.
feel like that kind of
Closes the conversation.
correct and makes it
Yeah.
okay to think that, you know, there's tradition and then there's what it has evolved to now.
Right.
I just think at the end of the conversation we'll figure out what it is, and I just think there's just one.
What it is transcends whether it was traditional, historical,
Yeah.
whether it's progressive. It doesn't matter. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
That's what I gained from you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that actually. I agree with
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Because
sorry.
that's one of the words, like, just in prepping for this this episode, like I've seen a lot tradition, and it has
That's how
been
they
used.
that's how they kind of put it against each other.
Correct.
Understood.
Like
Yeah.
like a this or that.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, we started off, and talking about what gender is, and you did mention in terms of biology, and that's another heavy discussion out in the public domain.
Right.
You see popping up everywhere. Listen, this topic is literally everywhere.
Of course,
It's in political areas, it's in the church, it's literally everywhere. It's social media, like you can't go anywhere and not hear people mention gender and all of the conversations surrounding that.
Yeah.
But again, back to basics. What is gender and what is sex? Is there a difference?
I do think there's a slight difference, but I would hold to the understanding of them being closely related and even dependent on each other. Mm-hmm. So I think gender should be anchored to sex.
Okay.
I don't think it's as fluid as people are led to believe right now, which I know is a controversial statement to make. It's not trying to box people in or anything, but this is just my firm belief that how you were born does dictate certain aspects of your culture, your behavior, and so. Because remember, I come from a perspective of faith-based, where I believe God made you exactly how He wanted to make you.
Yeah. And
so I believe when it comes to gender and sex, they should not be entirely separated.
Yeah.
That's where I would stand on it. So
I mean, I don't even think there's a difference. To be honest, like I don't see a difference between gender and sex.
Right.
I think it's the same thing.
So the only reason I say it's different is like in the way you would use the two terms.
Okay.
That's where I find, so like you wouldn't say like in just different examples I've seen, like in terms of if you're speaking from a biological standpoint, you would use more the definitions of sex. Mm-hmm. So this person belongs to the male sex, like that kind of thing. You wouldn't say gender or whatever. So gender does have some connotation of like behaviors, like the culture around it. But for me, it should be anchored to the sex. So like if I speak about a certain gender, you should automatically know what sex. Correct. That's where I differ from the current culture that's kind of taking over or opening conversations. So I do agree with you that there's a lot that there's no separation of it, and like you said, it should be the same. But I just think there is a little room for how we define it in certain ways, like gender and stuff.
Okay, I got you. Again, so much conversation happening around. I mean
you came into this conversation almost like if you was a little bit traumatized from the research, so
I wouldn't say traumatized, but shocked.
You're shocked.
Yeah, shocked by just what's out there. It's
a lot. Where we heading as well?
Yeah. In a very confusing. It confused me, honestly. The things that I read and the things that I saw, it confused me a bit in terms of like just understanding, hey, this is out there. And it's something that we definitely need to address. Because even though some of the things we're about to discuss may not necessarily connect 100% with the society, our current society we live in, Trinidad and Tobago, it is going to eventually infiltrate.
Yeah.
We are consuming the information that's out there in a very large.
Well, the world has become so much more global. So I think this is why you felt so burdened to actually have this conversation, because while we know probably there'll be things people disagree or so on, there are lots of people who need to have a space where we can talk about this, hopefully with some open minds, open hearts. But it's because, like you say, even though we don't see this, like for us in our context in Trinidad, as rampant or as exposed, it's going to get there. You know, and for me as a father, I want to be able to, that we could define these things a little bit more clearer, because my children will be growing up in a different world than I grew up in.
Yeah.
And I think because the world is so globalized, honestly, you're right. It's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's when.
Exactly.
And
so it's critical that we do have these spaces that have, open spaces to have conversations like this. And again, one of the things that we are going to touch on is, again, there's so much dealing with the conversation of gender, but we're going to specifically be talking about what's a man and what's a woman. Just very...
The rules and the rules.
The rules.
Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Exactly. Gender as a feeling. That is one of the things that confused me so much.
Right.
It's a conversation that has been had out there.
Right.
And it's surrounding the idea that gender is a feeling. It's how you feel. So you can be born a specific sex, but if you feel like you are
A different...
something else,
Right.
and I have to just say something else because there's so many things that we're being told we can't feel like,
Right.
that you can't be that. And so I think that brings a sort of confusion.
So how do you feel about that itself? Like, just the way of interpreting gender based on how you feel. So that is the separation between sex and gender.
Yes.
Because you could be born a male or female and feel something totally out of that spectrum. And people are supposed to accept that.
Yes.
Like, what's your view on that aspect then?
I feel like in the same way that we have been told that we have been conditioned to think non-binary, that the world today is being conditioned to accept certain ideas surrounding the topic of gender.
Ideologies, This
Yes. And feelings, if we're going to use the word feelings, with gender, that kind of scares me because I don't know about anybody else, but I just have 10 million feelings for the day. 10 million different feelings for the day.
So I could assume you're a woman, right?
Right? Yeah.
Like,
I am.
no.
I am, for the record, I am. I
You
do
make sure you
identify
pronounce
as such. You have to be careful, right?
But you have
yeah.
all those feelings.
Yeah, I think when you bring words like feelings into the conversation to discuss something as gender, it becomes a little... I just have questions. Like, my feelings just change very
Right.
quickly.
But that's kind of what the culture wants at this point. That someone can change their gender based on how they feel. So you saying that as the negative, but they actually celebrate that
As a positive.
as a positive. And that's for me, I see that as a huge problem.
The freedom to be what you want.
I mean, that sounds, and I guess that's how they would promote it. Because it sounds freeing. It
Yeah.
sounds liberating.
It
That,
does.
okay, I don't have to fit into a box or something. But for me, I guess where I see this is having, like when we briefly mentioned like rules being tied to sex and gender. And so I don't see that as limiting. I actually see that as empowering.
Yes.
That if the way that we have been born lends to strength for certain aspects of even in our culture, in our society, and so then that makes us stronger.
It does.
That's my view. I don't see it as something restrictive then. I see it more as empowering.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can go to the different gender roles, and I think this is, again, it has evolved over time, just the way men have been seen, women have been seen through the generations, and the things I guess that is acceptable through our generation. So we're going to just talk about that very briefly.
Right.
So baby boomers, and we're going to look at this through a historical, cultural context. The norms back in those days, men are seen as the breadwinners, women as homemakers.
Right.
You know, and I know some women were like, the whole concept of women belonging in the kitchen or taking care of kids.
Right.
The research says that this generation upheld more rigid, and again, the word traditional gender roles.
So that's why that word.
Yeah. And again, some examples, they said in the 1950s and 1960s, women were expected to marry, stay at home, and care for the children while men worked outside the home. Men typically held leadership positions,
Right.
both at home and in society, with few expectations.
Let me take aside, but I mean, this is not whether it's right or wrong. This is just observing what that generation did.
Yeah.
One thing I think you have to actually, like you had it when we discussed, this was right after the World War. So it kind of fit into that narrative as well. So it's not just because society said so.
Yeah.
The men were going out to fight wars as well. They were going out there, and so the women had to actually take care of home.
Yeah.
So I think we need to recognize, and that's why I said why I say gender does take into consideration the culture,
Yes.
those sort of things, because we could see that. So we're not here to say that's right or wrong or whatever. It's just what it was back then.
Yeah. Moving on to Gen X, and these would be people born between the years, 1965 to 1980. They would have seen more women entering the workforce, and gender roles become somewhat more flexible. However, they were still shaped by traditional family structure. Now, this research is obviously under the premise that gender and sex could possibly be two different things.
Well, that's the crazy thing. Researching, like just for this discussion, it blew my mind how many of the main sources now have changed
Yeah.
definitions, change acceptance of certain things. So
To fit with the culture.
To fit with the culture,
That we
yeah.
are pushing, the agenda that we're pushing now, right? So women in Gen X began balancing careers with family life more often, and the rise of the working mom became a cultural phenomenon. Divorce rates rose, so it sometimes led to single parent households where gender roles had to be adapted. So we're kind of seeing the breaking down of...
I found that real interesting.
Yeah.
I found that real interesting.
Why? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is so ironic, but just last night I was listening to an interview of two well-established professionals when it comes to relationships, and so the Gottmans, and they have done extensive research and helped couples through different marital issues and so on. They've written several books, and so one of the things they said was, they actually commented on something like this. They said, so the guy was asking, the interviewer was asking, what have the numbers shown in terms of between the difference between gender, males and females being unfaithful? And they actually said, well, surprisingly, the numbers, the women have caught up to the men. And they saw it because of the research they've done. They said it's because since women started going out to work, they were now exposed to a lot more options. And they said now the numbers have quickly, over the last year, most recent history, have now reached up where, because usually it used to have a very clear line between men and women. And
I mean, the conversation all the time is man is dog, right?
But it just shows now.
Yes.
And so when I saw that statistic, like, divorce rates rose, and they attributed to that. Now, it doesn't have to be because just all the women started going. It could be that with the woman's role working, the working mom, like you said, there's less time for family, less time for... There's a different dynamic on the whole.
It is.
So it could have meant that the man went out still and... So the divorce rates, we're not saying that is directly, but you can see the factor.
Linked,
But you can see the factor in it.
You're seeing a trend.
Correct. So that for me kind of stood out.
Yeah, so it kind of, and again, that kind of shows the family construct, how it's kind of easily being broken.
That's
Yeah.
the way, yeah.
Broken. So that's we're talking about the 60s to the 80s.
Now we go
We
in.
jump into the millennials, 1981 to 1996. Millennials have pushed back against traditional, again that word, gender roles, advocating for equality, fluidity, and inclusivity. Gender roles began to be redefined, with men and women sharing responsibilities in careers and home life more equally. Now, that sounds real good. When it's again, usually, so it's saying like in the 60s, women are working, probably men and women we're seeing working now, right?
Right.
Maybe the woman had to come home and still be doing the most
Right.
at home and stuff like that. So they're saying,
The woman
no, we're
belong
going
in
to
the kitchen,
balance.
right?
Yeah. So they probably had to go out, make their money, work whole day, come back.
Still come in and do-
take
yeah.
care of the kids,
Yeah.
do all their home duties.
Right.
Probably by themselves. I'm just saying, right? Assuming something here. But millennials have said, no, we're going to balance this thing off. Everybody equal in the house.
Right.
So men had to kind of like step up and wash our little dishes.
So the roles start to actually
Yes.
start to mix in now.
Yeah.
So this is what kind of raises the question for me. So do you think that there should be specific rules tied to men and women? Let me be careful how I say this, but from a point of view of, do you see that if roles are defined well between males and females, men and women, in the home, that it helps keep that structure for the family? Could it like help? Because I mean, what we're seeing is the brokenness of homes as we go through the generations, and we're seeing some of the changes, the challenges that they're doing. And so I'm just wondering, okay, like what are your thoughts on like the rules specific? Because that's what we're looking at being changed.
Exactly. I think the evolution of the rules, even just from, let's just look at the home to start with, right? It does play a part in terms of, I guess, the way a woman would have, how she would view a man to some degree. Like you mentioned something earlier that a woman going out to work, maybe seeing more options, she's a little bit more exposed and stuff like that. I think a woman that is working, earning her own keep is very challenging, not impossible, but I could understand the challenge in terms of having to still maintain the idea that a man is still the head of the house. Because this woman, again, she doesn't necessarily need this man to survive.
To be provider. She's providing for herself.
Correct.
Right.
So I think...
Let us be straight. That is one of the most traditional, understood rules for a man. The man was the one who went and provided.
Yes.
While the woman takes care of the home.
And so I think, again, I think women should, yes, be independent in that way. I love that for women. But I do see how
it brings a challenge.
It does bring a challenge, and it's something that women have to be very careful and very intentional too in terms of guarding their mind when it comes to how they view, I would say, specifically like their spouses and stuff like that. It may be you maybe have to be a little bit more intentional.
So I was scrolling on TikTok and I saw this video with this guy. It was basically another podcast with men and women, and the guy was bringing the analogy of he still believes that there's a place for a woman when it comes to lifestyle. So he has no problem with her working, making her own money and stuff, but he still believes that when she comes home, it's her duty to put food on the table, clean the house, certain things like that is just made for her. And his argument was, because for me as a man, when you need to figure a flat tire, that's my responsibility to you to do that. If you need an oil change, that's my responsibility for you to do that. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that a man doing chores even is something that he shouldn't do, or is it that in that context of what I gave you, something that's wrong or right?
I don't know. I think we shouldn't just be looking at chores in this conversation, because I feel like that's always like a main thing. Like, men belong in the kitchen, the man could be outside taking care of the car,
cutting the grass,
lawn. I think in the context of a home, I think there needs to be some sort of balance. Whatever that looks like. I'm not going to define it, because I think it could be different for different couples. So I don't 100% agree with what he said, but I kind of understand his idea.
Well, I know you're married. Does your husband do house chores and stuff?
I'm married.
Yeah. Well, I have my research of the host now.
You research me?
Yeah.
The man had to take his notes.
Okay. Yes. In my house, we share, I guess, duties.
So you have a great husband, basically.
Yeah, I guess so.
I would say you're such an idiot, But I would say in that analogy, I would agree with it from the extent of, I do believe based on your biology I think men and women are built differently because I think inherently we were made for certain aspects of it. So, like, you know, we joke about the 10 million feelings you have, but there's a reason why a man can provide a house, but a woman can make it a home. Like, those are things that's how we were made.
Yeah.
There are different capacities to us as a man and compared to a woman. There's not one better than the other, but we're complementary in those ways. And this way I would side with Ren in saying that I don't think it's just straightforward based on that. But I'm prefacing what I'm saying because I do believe that, yes, the male should be taking on maybe more the physical chores and stuff like that because that's how he was made.
Yeah.
I remember that a season in our lives, I had going into ministry full time. I left the job, and so my wife was the one going out to work. And so while I was home, I would try to do anything I could do to try and so I would make sure the dishes were washed. I didn't always do it, so you know, but she never made the issue. But I felt like, okay, that was so. I think it's based on your circumstance, the seasonal life you're in. So obviously, when my wife had our kids, I would pick up the slack in that season for more things.
You wouldn't just say, hey, you name woman,
you should be
take
doing
care of
this.
the children,
No.
go cook, make sure a hot plate of food at 5 o'clock.
So I do think there's, like how you said, that I think every couple, every family would have to find the dynamics that works. But I still preface that by saying, I do believe that men have certain roles that we excel in.
Yes.
So if you go back to the historical part, men would go out and put their lives in danger to hunt, to gather food, whatever, to provide for the family while the woman would take care, nurture the kids and so. And it wasn't anything demeaning. It wasn't because they couldn't go and do something else. It just as we all play to our strengths. And so I think there's value in what the guy was saying, but I just think we need to have this space where, because life is so different and different opportunities, different rules, that maybe in a season, you would help out. So just because he's a man, you wouldn't say I'm not doing the dishes or I wouldn't cook a meal.
Yeah.
You know if that makes sense? It's not like it stops us. It's like, okay, hey, my wife not feeling well today. Let me see what I could prepare. Let me take care of the kids for her.
Buy her KFC.
Buy KFC.
Yeah. I mean, her secret
so
is not really a
that hard
secret.
and fast with the duties part of it.
Yeah.
Which again, I feel like that's something that's always been pounded. Like
the woman belongs in the kitchen. Like it have guys who love to cook I mean, my father-in-law is like a chef. He loved to be in the kitchen to do that. So
and you know what? There are some couples that's actually the dynamic. The man would do more of the cooking.
Nothing's wrong with that.
It works.
Yeah.
It works.
Nothing's wrong with that.
So Gen Z, they're people that have been born between the year 1997 to 2012, and they have led the way in deconstructing the binary understanding of gender. And this is bringing into the conversation that there are more genders than just male and female.
So this is the actual separation of gender and sex.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For this generation, gender is seen more as a spectrum, and the traditional roles are frequently questioned or rejected. Many Gen Zs openly identify as non-binary, genderqueer, or gender fluid. They challenge societal expectations around gender presentation and advocate for inclusivity in schools, the workplace, and media representation. So this has become, so we've seen like the way it has slowly become, changed and become like a complete opposite of what, again, I don't want to use the word tradition, but what we were taught.
Right. What we inherited.
Correct.
What we inherited.
It's kind of scary. I won't lie. I find it's kind of scary. Because I kind of like try to put myself in the position of explaining this to a child, and it scares me.
You see, well, I guess when we touch on Gen Alpha, we'll see it even more, but you see how they've pushed for that, what they call, you see, the language for me is what troubles me. That troubles me because me defining someone by sex, male or female, and keeping that within gender like keeping gender anchored to that. It's not rejecting someone. It's not.
It's not.
It's not being exclusive or anything like that. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
And I find it very disturbing when we bend facts now to create our own truths.
Yeah.
And for me, that's not being mean or anything. One of the most loving things you can do is correct someone.
Yeah, you can.
Right? I mean, it's obviously how you do it and so, but if I see my child as a father believing something that, you know, I know is not true, for me, the loving thing is to try and teach her, you know, like, especially the baby I have, try to correct her, try to show her, hey, it's not this, is, you know, this is how you do things. For me, that's loving. So the kind of words that they use here is, and like you rightly said, and I think I'm seeing it more and more as we continue, is like traditional is something so bad or evil or restrictive, you know, or exclusive that people are feeling. No, it's not. It's just what was tradition was just based on facts. And people don't like that. That being said, but your biology is not something you choose. It's not something you can change it based on things, but ultimately you haven't really changed it.
Here's my concern in terms of that word inclusivity. Having, well, I guess the concept of non-binary made people feel like they weren't included. But I feel like the introduction of so many other variations as it pertains to gender, how does that make you feel included? That's where I have the confusion. If 2 makes you feel excluded, how does many make you feel included?
Because it just makes you an even greater minority, right?
This is my thing.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, to be honest.
You're more segregated.
But so that's where I think this has a lot more to do with, I want to use this word, but it's more people standing on what they want to believe over what something just really is. And for me, it's not really inclusive, because we, even in our generation, we were taught how to respect people, accept people for what their choices are in terms of lifestyle or what they identify with. But didn't mean that we had to actually participate in it. And I'll say
and
this.
that's life, Beyond this gender conversation, that's life.
Gender is the only thing that has blurred those lines now. Like, you have to accept people, you may not like something I'm doing or so, but, at the end of the day, you may tell me, you may give your opinion, you may give advice or something, but at the end of the day, I would have to choose what I'm doing, and it's something that you would have to, as much as you may have care or concern for me, you might have to just watch and be like, okay, he's doing his own thing. Like you say, it's life. But for us, we've taken this to some extremity where what I feel or what my opinion is, you have to actually come along now.
Yeah. I just feel like the justification a lot of times is more of a contradiction.
Like being inclusive,
correct.
Because you actually make yourself even more separate.
Correct.
Especially with it being fluid now.
So let's just say we're having a conversation. That is actually what's the narrative out in the open. Okay, I'm listening, but it doesn't make sense to me what you're saying.
Right.
Because you're kind of contradicting the very thing that you are saying.
That you're trying to fight for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to Gen Alpha.
Doesn't get better here though, but
these are the babies. They were born between 2013 to present. Though still very young, Gen Alpha is growing up in a world where gender roles are more fluid and more diverse than ever before. Their upbringing includes exposure to a more inclusive, gender-diverse culture from birth. Gen Alpha is exposed to gender-neutral clothing lines, toys marketed to all children, not just boys or girls. Confused by that, extremely confused. I'm very confused. Anyways, that's what they said, right? And diverse representation in media that includes non-binary and transgender characters.
Right. I'll just say
I
this.
wonder what will happen in the next generation.
No, I just tell you straight. My daughter ain't gonna be exposed to this kind of foolishness. I mean, I just dealing with science. You know, they always tell you, they always pit science against faith and
Yes.
stuff. But now they want to throw science out to go with feelings, emotions and stuff. No, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I could teach my daughter how to have respect for every person, but I don't have to have her participate in it.
Yeah.
Especially with something I don't believe in.
And I think that's just our stance here. Like, we're not throwing disrespect to anybody.
No.
But this is just our stance as it pertains to.
I'll be honest with you, where this has gone too far is how they have targeted the children.
Yeah.
And y'all can debate this and disagree, but this whole conversation is something that has been taught. You look through the historical thing, it's not because people just suddenly got smarter. Let's not disrespect the generations before, because they're actually probably more stronger than we have been. They've gone through a lot harder challenges, depressions, world wars, and so I recognize the wealth of gold that they have. So I'm not putting that down in any way. But
again, the puzzle to me is that is the argument that has been used, that we were almost taught into this whole male-female thing. But this is exactly what they are doing to
what
the
they're
children.
doing, that's my
so
point.
I again, the justification is more of a contradiction
than
yeah.
fighting for freedom, but yet you trying to actually
Yeah.
put this on the society
Correct.
to accept
The
it.
very thing you said, hey, I don't agree, I don't subscribe to this because
But this movement is doing that.
correct. But they are doing the exact same thing. They have
Accused,
tried to
yeah.
step away from an accused.
The generations before. And I don't see it like that. I guess, and that's why I said I would disagree. I think the generations before dealt more in just the reality of what things were. And so for me, I subscribe to that. As an adult now, I'm not choosing something someone put and told me. I've read up, I've seen the things, but I've seen also the effects of this.
Yeah.
I've seen our generations more lost, more devastated, trying to explore all of this rather than, so yeah, you may have a few that will say, yeah, we finally included. But the majority of them, like, and me talking to younger people and stuff, I actually see this as being more harmful at this point. So I just being straight. For me, I could respect people and I'll teach my kids and the generations coming up to respect people to make their choices.
Yes.
But doesn't mean I have to participate in it.
Yeah.
That's just me. But
No, I 100% agree with what you said there. Like, you are entitled to feel how you feel. Adults, let me make that clear.
Make it clear.
Adults are entitled to feel the way that they feel and do what they like.
right.
But that doesn't mean that I could respect you, but I don't have to participate or.
But you use this word, and this is where I guess we're touching on the modern day landscape right now. Do not come and try to indoctrinate my children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I am very fierce about that. Do not try to confuse my children with what we've known and what we do see. Biology, two gender roles, you can't separate. And I'm not going to teach my children to honor feelings more than facts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And feelings over faith or anything like that. So
So, I mean, in today's culture, often characterized by a focus on hyper-inclusivity, discussions around inclusivity, LGBTQ plus rights, and diversity have significantly impacted and shifted societal norms away from traditional, I hate that word, traditional views. Research indicates that gender has traditionally been acquired through the socialization process.
that's wrong.
So
though.
we're socialized to be male and female.
They use that argument because to weaken the stance on it. No.
All right, but let's just say the argument stands, right? How do you justify the socialization that's currently happening?
right now? It's exactly like you said. What they are saying was the problem. They have adapted and now
Yep.
started to do it themselves.
Yeah.
In terms of having these type of conversations.
So they have suggested that gender roles are learned rather than absolute. So again, I could feel like a specific thing today and be something else tomorrow.
But the accusation there is basically that what we have inherited from generations before is because they taught us to think this way or to view gender a certain way. But I kind of disagree with that. I mean, I think you have a good case study, an example.
Yeah, John Money's idea of gender.
I researched this case study.
You want to give us a little preface of the story with
Sure.
John Money?
So there were these two twin boys,
Yeah.
and one of them, through his circumcision, they were going to circumcise him, had a freak accident during that process. And basically his big idea, John Money, was this one who has lost his private, let's transition him, train him, teach him. He's a girl, so this is a child, baby, and let's show that these roles are really learned,
Yeah.
and not actually absolute, like what they were saying.
It's a baby.
A baby. So the experiment was exactly that. So one was raised as a boy, one of the twins, and the other one was taught and exposed to everything that he was indeed a girl, and he grew up as a girl for many years. And you wanna go from there, or you?
Well, the story turned out very tragic. First, to begin with, I was completely
It was
distraught
sad. It was sad.
by the fact that they used children. I mean, yes, the parents consented to this experiment, sadly, but they destroyed these. They destroyed their lives.
The two boys are dead now. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. One of them committed
Suicide, and the other one, succumbed to everything that he had gone through.
Yeah, and so John Money had this great idea that gender was learned, it's learned behavior.
It's not innate.
It's
Yeah.
a social construct. Gender development occurs through a combination of biological, psychological, and social factors. So I think he is the person that's responsible for popularizing the terms gender and sex being two separate things.
He brought about this ideology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's your thoughts though? I mean, we kind of touched on.
So for me, I mean, staying with that case study. So we spoke about the unfortunate end of these two boys. The one, David, who was transitioned, actually in his comment, he would still be, he spoke about it. They have interviews with him where no matter what he was being taught, he had the natural.
Yes.
That's what all it was, because he was taught. He actually proved exactly the opposite of what John Money was trying to indicate.
And that's the part of the research they don't talk about.
They don't want to talk about, right? And he actually went back, transitioning back to being a male, but obviously with lots of damage, psychological, emotional, so much wrong with him. But the fact of the matter was, even given a controlled environment, raising this young man as a woman, so to their argument that it could be learned, it actually failed.
It did.
Really horribly. And the sad thing is, it cost these young guys their lives.
Yeah.
Because people believe that. I mean, he was actually proven wrong that the biology does determine and affect and influence in a great way gender and the roles and all these things.
You can change how you look on the outside with surgeries and all, but inside, you still remain the same.
Yeah. Let's just be clear on this. This is not automatic. That's saying, so like we do recognize from, I know I'm opening a can of worms here, but in terms of the homosexual aspect of this conversation, that you can have feelings, same-sex attraction, and it's not because you are a male you should automatically like, because there are other factors that play on that.
Yes.
Right? So we're not just saying it's just simply like that. There's lots of conversations that have still around all of this, but when it comes to gender, I think it's just a clear line for us. At least this is what we agree on, that you cannot separate your sex from your gender. And I think there's
we're not even touching on the discussion or part of this discussion with lifestyle.
right. That's what I
Yeah.
want to say. We not so we just want to be clear. This is gender and sex we're talking about here, but we have a firm stand on that.
Yeah.
And again, those case studies and so they show and here's the crazy thing. So Gen Alpha here now, they are like guinea pigs right now because they are being promoted. These children are being promoted to a place of where, hey, transition your sex.
Yes.
Like physically alter your body, biologically make changes from the inside to change your sex, your gender. And the crazy thing is we do not have enough studies to show the long-term effects of all of
We
this.
don't.
So
Again, so they're the lab rats, you have to call them.
but it's one aspect we're not talking about that we haven't really touched on. This is business as well.
It is. It's
So-
a money-making business. Like,
Correct.
the whole agenda,
It's
It's-
rooted in
it's
business
money,
as well.
It's money. It's money. It all comes down to money. If this is
Yeah.
not profiting some industry, we would never be having conversation. We would never have to have conversations.
So
like this.
that's what I brought in because of the next point about it, the Hollywood agenda.
Listen,
Let me hear.
a couple years ago, I kind of noticed like a trend happening in terms of how they were introducing this conversation of gender roles
Right,
and gender
okay.
norms, as they call it now. I used to watch Christmas movies on a particular network, right? I would call it.
The
Go
fact that we
figure.
can react like that is because we know what you women like
Okay,
that.
okay. So yeah, very normal and stuff like that, watching. And then all of a sudden I started seeing the content of it changing, and I'm like, this is really interesting. But over the years too, you've been seeing it also in cartoons and
Right.
in games. It's also on games that
Yeah.
your kids be playing. The conversation is entering those spaces in terms of gender, and again that word, the
So
indoctrination.
for me, I have a different view. I think Hollywood is a vehicle. Think of it like a Trojan horse. So I don't think that is what is used to actually facilitate the questions, they influence us
Yeah.
and they desensitize us to things that we once would say, hey, that's a little bit off, that's not right or something. Right and wrong becomes blurred. Because if we are, because they hear the things you're talking about, games, music, things targeting for the kids and whatever. If you sell an ideology in a fun way, children don't have their guards up. They don't. So that's why, I mean,
That's the thing. If you understand the science behind communication and the way,
right, this is your field. So you
if
are the talking
so
to
if you
that.
understand the science behind it, that's why it's so scary when you like break these things down, and it's mad. It's mad. It's mad.
Yeah.
It's mad, and it's not getting any better, unfortunately.
It's exactly as we termed it here. It's a Hollywood agenda.
So yeah, it will plant one small little seed, and it'll keep little by little, you
But
know.
it waters it from so many different
Correct.
sides. Yeah.
We're being bombarded
Yeah.
everywhere, literally. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's a question, it's a conversation that needs to be had, because parents need to be guarding their kids.
Yes. Trust me.
I
we
don't know what the answer is or what that looks like. I don't have children of my own, but listen, I can imagine the challenge and struggle that is.
I think you have to just be intentional and
Yeah.
start there. Because for us, like, there are alternative sources of entertainment or things like that. Or my wife always laughs at me. Like, so we do like a little movie night, Friday nights, just our family, just try to spend our time together. And like, if my daughter, so each one, every week we choose someone in the family chooses the
Yeah.
movie to watch or something. So of course I am outnumbered in a house with just women. So the number of Disney movies we might have seen. But if I see they say something, so she's real laugh at me. Like, follow your heart. It will never lead you wrong. I was like, that's a lie. your heart deceitful. Like I would, I would just
No.
drop stuff in like that. But
You have to.
no, and that like I do that openly because I've learned that your mind goes into a different mode when you're watching TV.
Yeah.
So like you talk about communication, and you're less resistant to that. Like if two people are speaking, you are more prone to agree and disagree. But when you're looking at a movie,
You are just on the receiving end.
correct. So I throw in those things. My wife, like we went to cinema watching. I'm not going to give them any promotion, but like a well-known franchise, and I was just like, that's a lie. Like, because I was doing it for myself. Like, they were mocking some things with my faith and so on. I'm just like, I tell her straight, I was like, I'm never going to put my money to somewhere that mocks my God.
Yeah.
Like, and I honestly, I haven't gone back to cinema in a long time. I might go with my kids. But anyway, the point is, like, I feel like that's something that parents have to become real intentional with.
Yeah.
There are alternative sources, but you can't shield them from everything. But you have to actually have the conversations.
You have to start having the conversations. Just as much
For
as
sure.
they're being on the receiving end of those messages.
Yes.
You know, you
Most
have to give
definitely.
them a fighting chance in this world. Please do, please. All right, so what has this shift through generations meant practically? We're going to go through a couple
Changes that you've seen.
changes, yeah. So there's this one idea that men have it easier in our current society than in generations past. So there's not much pressure to provide as in
Like in times past.
yeah, in times past.
I think that is accurate in the sense of men don't have that pressure to provide alone because, like you said, like the women are definitely going into the workspace, producing, and a lot of them earn even more.
Yeah.
Despite the conversation about gender gap in terms of pay, but they do really well. They excel. Lots of higher positions are being filled more and more by women as well. So that aspect, saying that men have it easier overall, maybe in that context, yes, but
Yeah.
I don't think men have it easy. I think
It's
men
not
have
just
it
like a statement that could be made. In this
No.
context, okay.
for providing maybe,
Right.
yeah, but not overall. I think men actually have it harder right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially around gender roles, and so I think genuine and healthy masculinity is attacked, and I think you have this actually. So I might be jumping ahead, but feminine women are more celebrated than masculine men.
Feminine men.
Yes, sorry,
Feminine,
feminine men. Yes, yeah. So I think it's kind of I agree, but not overall.
Independent women do not accept the idea of being a traditional wife.
You know, it's
Well,
like
what do you have in your notes?
you want me to say it, right? So independent women do not accept the idea of being a traditional wife. We see that trend, right? We see that. But yet they want a traditional man.
Yeah.
But they don't want to be a traditional woman. That's what I cannot understand. I speak to a lot of singles and women, one of the things, I'll say this out, women have bought into the lie that the culture has pushed, that one of your best satisfaction is career or something.
Okay.
And this speaks into it because we have a lot of women who have done exceptionally well, but I'm not saying that you have to choose either one, but you have to be intentional. Like, hey, if you want to have a family, even if you're not sure how that looks, but you want to have a companion, let's start there then. You want to have a spouse or so, you have to be building that like whether it's going out, meeting people, investing in relationships. So
But that is
this
such a, like the perception. I often wonder, and I would say, I hope this doesn't offend anybody, who are you beyond your career? That's specifically for the woman. Who are you beyond your career? Like a lot of times, again, you said it, they go back there. The whole career conversation, very
Right.
career-driven, career-oriented, which is great.
yeah.
I love that. But that's not you or all of who you are.
Right.
And if that is the idea, then that's something that needs to be checked.
But I would just add to that, I fully agree with you, but I think that problem is bigger than just women. I think men, we define ourselves too much by what we do. You think about society on the whole. You meet someone, one of the first questions, hey, what do you do?
Yes.
Like, because that's
we sometimes assign respect.
Correct. No, that's what I was going to say. We've put that as one of the highest values.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying note it. Like someone who has dedicated years of education, practice to achieve a certain skill. Like we can celebrate that.
Yeah.
But that's not who you are.
Yeah.
And that is the part. So I think, yes.
And that's the thing. Even if you have that idea and you end up with someone, you're setting up yourself for some problems.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Let's move along. Money dictates gender rules.
I want to hear your take on this.
So I think that kind of leads into the same thing that you had mentioned earlier in terms of the woman making more money than the man. And again, that question of respect. I think women, and I said this earlier on the podcast, women need to be a little more intentional when that is the case.
I feel you losing plenty women subscribers.
I probably would.
From this episode.
No, but we have to have these real conversations. I'm not saying water down who you are or just be accepting of any old attitude and behavior from any man, or just, to be desperate and take the first one that's standing in line. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that when you get yourself to the point of marriage and you're in a marriage, those types of views will get you in trouble. You're setting yourself up. And again, I know I'm only speaking specific to the woman because I'm not a man. That is just basically the reason why I'm speaking on this end.
No, but I mean, that is such a crucial point. And I know you had touched on it before, but money has a way of changing our rules and so on. It should not.
Yeah.
It should not. And I think we have a lot of, so for me as a pastor, I see money as such a huge challenge. So it's not just about if we have enough or so, but what you've touched on is a complexity that people have to work out before they get into those marriages.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know who you are outside of your job, how much money you can make, etc., you're going to have problems because these things change.
I was now going to say
these
that.
Factors change.
So you might enter a relationship with someone, they're working for more money than you. I'm sure somehow they end up losing their job. You are the only person making money at that point. How do you function and survive in those seasons?
But I have to defend some of the women with this. The way I've seen the flip to that is the woman who has stayed really faithful and really sacrificial to a man who was struggling. And then when he gets it and he achieves it, he pushes her away and goes off.
Yeah.
So I've seen where money changes even the men in that regard. Because I've seen most men that I see who've built really well is because of the person they have. I mean, I could testify to that in my life. It's not been like one individual. And that's what makes a strong marriage and so. But I think I just wanted to provide that side of it because I've seen that story play out as well. Yeah.
I think it's important to definitely balance things out. Men are not willing to take up traditional roles, example as a husband. And this is actually something that someone shared with me. This is their reasoning because they have more to lose, like in a divorce, etc. I found it so interesting.
I read a statistic that the richest women in the world is because they divorced some of the richest men in the world. I'm not joking. Listen, I was not trying to be funny.
That's not even funny. I know it's a woman that's make plenty money. I'm not subscribing to.
No, but I just say just in terms of statistics. No, it is.
Okay.
That somebody top is because so.
I hope that wasn't the plan.
No, I don't know, and I'm not trying to speak enough. But that's when I read this, I was like, I've seen men actually move away from wanting to get married because of this factor.
Fair. It's a fair thing.
And let's be straight, it can be unfair as well to a man who has worked hard and built up, especially if he had the traditional role of provider, and then when the relationship ends, he loses. Let's be real, more sometimes because courts are more likely to and lenient to go in favor with a woman, especially around children, when the statistics show a family with a man is much more healthier. So like, given the statistics we know of the absence of a man in a home, shouldn't we be considering like, okay, can the male actually be the main person to take care of the children, raise them in a way? I know I'll get shots for that, but I'm just saying, like, when you have this point, I do see more men pulling away or hesitant to that aspect.
I don't know, like, if women as well, like women that are doing well for themselves, if this is also like something that concerns them, in terms of like just getting involved with someone or looking for a partner, maybe. I don't know.
This is why when we do premarital counsel, we do have to touch on finances, because I'm not telling you all what to do. So we advise and we counsel that money should be something that is totally unified. How you do that, because if you have one spouse who spends too much or whatever, you limit access and you deal with individuals. However, two becoming one means, it's not my money and your money. So as a general rule, we'll go. However, we tell people at least to have a great understanding going into marriage. So to this point, going into marriage with a clear understanding of how you're going to treat with the finances.
I think that's the bottom line. Like, you can't take things for granted. Have conversations.
Correct. Have an understanding.
Whatever the agreement is.
Let me be honest. Life, if not through changes in personality or relationships, whatever, life has a way of challenging those things as well. So you have to be willing to have the conversations, etc.
Yeah. So let's wrap things up here. Where does faith fit? And I think this is the most important part of this whole conversation. We real talk. But if you didn't hear anything, listen to this part.
Where does faith fit?
So navigating these changes in gender roles and stuff like that, but staying rooted in faith, how does that look? What are your thoughts?
So my start to this conversation has been that I do believe gender is tied and rooted to your sex. So I believe male and female. So based on those differences, you have different rules to play.
Yeah.
In society, in life, especially in family, with a spouse, all those sort of things. And it is rooted in faith, because I do believe, like, the Bible gives us guidelines.
Yeah.
So it's not hard and fasted, but it's guidelines that I believe if the person who created me, I would give the context that they would know what's best, because they made us in a certain way. So, we love to say God made us in his image and likeness, but he knows us intricately. So it's not just a blanket statement, but in many scriptures it talks about, like in the Psalmist, he says, you knitted me in your womb, in my mother's womb. That means like God was like handcrafted us.
Yes.
So in terms of our sex, our personality, the psychology of who we are. Yes, we know these things are affected by environments and so, but essentially who we are, I believe, is created by God. And so just to bring that in, I do believe that our faith speaks a lot into this space. So if you look at marriage especially, Bible tells us how the man should be, how the woman should be. Now the Bible never says anything about in between, because it deals directly with who we are, how we were made, God's image and likeness. And I think that's important. So I do believe when it comes to faith, and this is what I would say it before I hand it back to you, I do not see this as restrictive. I see this as empowering.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I'm better at than my wife. Doesn't make her less of an individual, but it means I get to find a way to serve her.
Yeah. But just like there are certain things that you are better at, there are certain things she will be better at.
100%.
Yeah. So it's complementary, like you.
It's complementary. And there's the part about it, it's not 50-50.
No.
It's not 50-50. There are certain seasons that my wife would have carried more than I could have.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
The idea here is we work with our strengths and with the guidelines that God gives us. So when it says, like in Ephesians, the husband is head of the wife, as Christ is head of the church. People say, well, they may not like how that sounds, but Christ served the church, and that's what Paul was actually telling the husbands. You are head. But I do believe that the man has to be the head spiritually. And I think the man may not be the one organizing all the aspects of the teaching or the learning in the house, but he sets the temperature of, hey, we are a household, like Joshua said. I don't know who you all want to serve, if all you want to serve the gods of the past and your fathers before, but as for me and my house, I believe that men have to take that stand.
Yeah.
Become more vocal. Their children need to hear that, and they need to see it as well. So I think being the head of the home is not dictatorship. And again, that's where I think the Bible has been misused, abused, and even misunderstood.
Yes, for sure.
Because when God talks about headship, the first thing he's talking about is how to serve.
Yeah.
In the context. But he does clarify different rules. I think it was in Timothy. Paul tells Timothy, a man who does not provide for his home is worse than an unbeliever. Ouch, that had hit me in different seasons in my life. And so I think, yes, so that's a definite rule. One of the things that people love to quote women, Proverbs 31. And I think, yes, I tell every man you're looking for a Proverbs 31 woman. The problem is people don't really read Proverbs 31. She was good in doing business and so, you know. So the part about women being able to generate and to work is not against it. Proverbs 31 talks about a woman who was good in business. But you know what it says? She got up early. Ren, this one is for you.
No, don't try to say my garden, please.
MP, can you send this clip especially for her husband?
Yeah, I'll make sure and clip it.
So, you know, Proverbs 31, you know, it talks about the woman who got up early and make sure that there was food for the household.
I live at different times. So I wake up early, just not to the current.
No, but I mean, you know, so when we talk about like those rules and so, the Bible has a lot to say about that. And it's not because it's restricting. It's because God knows best.
Yeah.
And the truth is, for me as a man, I want when I go home, and my wife does a great job of just making sure things are, first of all, at peace in a great way, but also just little things she knows that I like my space, organized, whatever. She would be working and still tell me, hey, leave the dishes and stuff. There'll be days I'll still do it and so, but we have an understanding. So it's not like so defined.
Yes.
I don't think that's what the Bible's saying, but there's a generalized part where Eve was Adam's helper. So when it comes to salvation, let me just say this, and I'm done. When it comes to salvation, there's no difference.
Yes.
God was very clear. The value of a man and a woman equal. When it comes to roles, there's difference.
Yeah, and that scripture, we're going to touch on some scriptures in the next podcast, a little bit more in depth, possibly in terms of some of the misconceptions, I guess.
Right.
And ways that these scriptures are used and interpreted in the wrong way to justify certain lifestyles.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, we definitely had to do that. We can't
would
just
have
talk about the culture, and so
Yeah.
we have to deal with these stuff as well.
I think how I
And the
would
faith.
end is just by saying that I think God is very intentional, has always been very intentional with what he does, and that includes you, and that includes the way that he created you and I. I don't think, I think I would be a little bit disrespectful if I were to step out of what he has intended for me, or who he has intended for me to be. So I would just end it with that. Again, this I know this is probably like a conversation that was a little bit heavy. The intention is never to make anybody feel alienated or excluded. But
man, we want your comments. You disagreed,
Sure.
let us know. We want to take that. That helps us as well in the conversations. We just shared at the end really our beliefs and why we believe that, but when you're free to disagree and stuff. But I hope they know that it's just a safe space to have the conversation.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it was on our hearts to open this space, to have just to have these conversations. You could agree with us, you could disagree, whatever. We're cool, right? But it has
so
been...
they don't unfollow her now.
Oh God.
Go ahead.
It has been, as always, a pleasure coming into the space and being able to share with you guys. We would love to hear from you all. Those of you that view us on WESN, we love you all. We love you all. You can check us out on our socials at Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and now Facebook at Hope Unfiltered. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care. Bye.
Let's begin.